Guys, we are finally back with more Black Clover greatness. And if it wasn't already expressly clear, this chapter yet again proves that with the exception of One Piece perhaps, no series in Jump comes close to matching Black Clover's ability to make use of its expansive cast of characters. Even the weakest or least popular among them are still given opportunity to rise up and make major moves like we see in this one. With the previous chapter, by way of Devil Union, Asta was able to defeat a devil of the highest order and save Vice Captain Knot. However, to follow this, Asta will need around 30 minutes or so to be able to transform once again, and so for now, it was up to his comrades to fight the good fight. Shifting to Dante and Jack, the two were still fighting, but Jack was at this point fighting for his life as he was barely hanging on but refusing to give up. But to interrupt this bout would be the entrance of Magna and Zora. With these two being peasants of low mana, Dante completely disregarded their presences and would subsequently refuse to use his power on such unworthy opponents. Furthermore, to express his superiority, he would even allow them to attack all they like and leave when they're satisfied. An offer Magna would not refuse, as he would do just that, now adding a little extra something to his fire, as along with it came a chain that connected him to Dante. As suddenly, much to his own surprise, Dante would be taken out of his 100% form. Meanwhile, Magna was making his way towards and would give Dante a devastating punch to the face. This was Secret Flame Magic Soul Chain Deathmatch. This latest chapter, however, would open up with a flashback from a staggering 6 months ago. Now, I for one was happy to see this denotion because previously I couldn't help but question how exactly these characters managed to progress so greatly in only a matter of days. And with this, we have the explanation that this progression was months in the making. Here, Magna would be on his hands and knees begging Zora to teach him his ways. You see, back in the Heart Kingdom, Magna was denied when it came to the tutelage of mana method because his mana levels were simply too low. Magna is a character like Asta who is often looked down on account of his lacking magical power. But whereas Asta has anti-magic to make up for it, Magna doesn't have much to show for himself. But despite being in a similar situation, Zora is still able to pull off mana method and do some pretty incredible things across the board with his trap magic. The most impressive of them being his counter trap that copies magical attacks and sends them back twofold. And again, Magna was now begging him. His friend and rival Luck was bound to become even more incredible, but here he was, lacking. The last thing he wanted was to be a burden to the Black Bulls. And as we have seen, Luck's training with the elves has made him a complete beast, more so than he already was, so yeah, Magna has a whole lot to live up to. But Zora, now overlooking him, would be reminded of his late father as a low-class magic knight that uses fire magic. Zora would agree to do so, but would tell the guy to quit the groveling. In fact, by teaching him a thing or two, perhaps Zora himself could stand to learn something, which is certainly a notion I can subscribe to, as through breaking down and discussing the content of these stories with all of you, I am able to in turn better understand them myself. From here, Zora would guide his newfound protege elsewhere and into what was his secret base, a hut completely littered with stacks of papers that had arcane glyphs inscribed all over them, thus making it rather clear that Zora himself was trying his best to become stronger as well. He would then explain that what he uses, albeit similar to an extent, isn't a true example of mana method usage. The reason being, for that sort of thing, the user needs a whole lot of magical power, something he himself lacks. And as a result, to achieve something of a similar effect, he has to create formulas ahead of time, especially when it comes to something as powerful as his counter trap. But guys, here's where things get crazy. When mana method is created by way of weak magical power, rather than disappearing, it remains because of that weakness. And because of this longevity, it's possible to create exceedingly complicated magical formulas if given the appropriate amount of time. This is something that takes a whole lot of study and research, and so the question would then become, can someone like Magna pull it off? You see, up until this point, he never really put much thought into his use of magic, but with this, he was able to truly recognize how amazing it is. Now, after studying for quite some time, Magna would realize that emulating Zora's counter wouldn't exactly work for him. But then, he would have a breakthrough and rush towards Zora, questioning a formula that he himself had come up with. Zoro would subsequently consider it to be possible, yes, but the time and patience required for such a thing would be extreme. And with this, Magna would get to work. Now, as we saw with the previous chapter, when the guild was facing Dante the first time around, Magna didn't join in on the fight because this spell wasn't yet complete. That if he had entered the fray, he would either die or simply get in the way. But now he would have his time to shine with a spell he could only use once after preparing it for half a year. In the present, their magical powers were split evenly amongst them, and Magna was ready for a brawl. He would tell Dante that if he tries to remove the chain by force, he will compromise his very soul. Now, from the sidelines, Jack couldn't believe his eyes, as this should be impossible. But it was possible. And Zoro would then explain that attacks from the outside would mess with the magic's effects, so the best they could do was sit and watch the two go head to head. Magna would then slam a fist into the gut of Dante until he spit out blood. And because of this, Dante would retaliate with a fist of his own. Magna would then question Dante's earlier proclamation that he wouldn't raise a hand to such a peasant. Dante had to recognize him at the very least, now just calling him a thief. He then used his gravity magic on Magna, which was tolerable because of their equivalent magical power. Magna would then return the favor, but at the end of the day, Dante does possess that absurd healing factor, so he'd likely outlast him regardless, as he would then let off a series of staggering blows. And listen, perhaps his mana levels can be laughed at, but one thing Dante should never underestimate about Magna, or any of the Black Bulls for that matter, is their resolve and unwillingness to back down. And as a lowly peasant, Magna is no stranger to a street fight, as he would then drop the fiend with a clobbering fist. And that was the chapter. Listen man, I did not expect to enjoy this fight as much as I am right now. Magna goes hard, and you gotta love an underdog. Again, I don't expect him to win in the end, but man oh man, I would be lying if I said I prefer Asta's fight with the Twin Devils over this. No cap, this might be the best fight that we have gotten from this part of the arc. The magic is properly explained and reasonable. The emotional stakes are there. We have a lesser focused character going at it with a damn near immortal leader of the enemy forces. Magna has my respect. Black Clover fans, how do we feel? How do we feel about this one, man? And what kind of madness do we expect Zoro to pull up with after all this is said and done? Let us know in the comments. And for even more, be sure to subscribe to Plot Armor with notifications on so you never miss out on any of the hype. And to keep up with all things anime and manga, follow us over on Instagram and Twitter at PlotArmorYT, because when it comes to bringing you some of the best Black Clover content on the platform, Plot Armor has you covered. As always, I am Sliceable Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching, and have an awesome day. I love you.